So in the 6th chapter, he spoke about the best of the yogis. The best of yogis, he says, is like someone who is actually worshipping him with faith. Let me read the translation. He says, and of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and he is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So this is what Krishna says about the best of the yogis. One who has great faith in Krishna, and who always thinks of him, and who renders transcendental loving service to Krishna. So in this chapter, he is going to say how to invoke that kind of a faith, how to develop that kind of a faith, uh, so that one can start thinking of Krishna and also start rendering service to Krishna. So this chapter, he straight begins, how do we develop that kind of a faith? So he starts saying that if if you hear about me, Krishna says, begin with hearing. If you hear about me, gradually all the doubts will go and you will know me in full, and naturally your mind will become attached to me. So that is why Krishna is speaking about the process of hearing, Shravanam in Sanskrit. So it helps actually very much. This is the beginning of spiritual knowledge, is hearing about Krishna. So that's why he takes all the time to explain the importance of hearing. And also, if you want to serve Krishna, if someone wants to serve Krishna, they need to know the greatness of Krishna. So what is one greatness of Krishna that you think wows you? In general, like about the Supreme Lord, if there is one thing about thinking about God, wow, how does he do that? That kind of, what is that one thing for you which really wows you when you think about God, uh when you just try to grasp the idea of who is God?
Well, I was reading the Krishna book with some friends of mine this week, and we were reading about the Agasura demon, and then it said, after the boys couldn't remember for a year about the Agasura demon, and because the next chapter was Indra taking the boys away and hiding them. And what was so wowing was how Krishna manifested the boys and the cowherd boys completely as they looked, but they were actually him, right? So he had really just created, I guess, both the boys and the calves, sorry. And yeah, and so how everybody was in love with them because, suddenly they were more in love with them as they normally would have been with Krishna. So the power of Krishna, I guess I should say, is what is so phenomenal for me, or one of the things.
Thank you so much. You perfectly gave me the link that I needed for the next section, the point that I wanted to make. So thank you for that. Still, others, if anybody would like to share, like what is one thing when you think of the power of God, or whenever you think of this concept of God, what is one thing which wows you? Mahidar, you want to say something? Okay. Anybody else? Purva, Swarit, Sundaranand Prabhu?
I like the concept that he is also within us. Uh, I was just before this class, I was just reading the shloka, not from the Bhagavad Gita, but the Om Purnamida Purnamada. I was reading that and its explanation, and I was trying to connect it um, with how we say that Krishna has created the entire universe, and how it is infinite, and he himself is infinite, so we are also infinite. And yeah, I really like that concept.
Thank you, Purva. So that seeing how like he's so infinite. Yes, Parnika?
I don't know if this is like maybe how great he is, but like for me, it's like my favorite thing about it is he's always looking for the love of his devotees. Like no matter what his call, like like he has so many amazing qualities, and he's ultimate, right? Like he's all powerful, he has all strength,
Mhm.
but still he bows down to the feet of Radha Rani, because he's looking for the love of his like ultimate devotee, who is Radha Rani. So I really like
Correct.
that.
Thank you. So the power side and also the soft side, both is there in Krishna. He is so powerful, at the same time he is looking for, he is like open for a loving reaction. Sorry, loving reciprocation relationship. Thank you, Parnika. Anybody else? Okay. So far, like we had these points that how, even though like how great God is, like how powerful he is, how he has energies that he expands. Like Sundaranand Pro, you want to say something? So how he is so powerful and he still expands himself into various energies and infinitely, as Purva was saying, and still he is looking for a relationship, as Parnika was saying. So that is the very reason he is speaking this particular chapter. So he's going to explain his energies in this particular chapter, how great he is, how expansive his energy is. However, all of this is to create a loving relationship with us, for us to be able to connect with him. So that is why he is going to explain the various and his variety of his energies, so that we can actually see him when we see those energies, and we can connect with him and develop a relationship. That's the purpose of explaining his power in this particular chapter. Have you ever heard this concept that there are three levels of knowledge in Bhagavad Gita: secret, the more secret, and the most secret? Have you anybody heard it earlier?
Would would that be the most confidential knowledge, the one that you said, the most secretive knowledge?
Yeah.
I have I have read about the most confidential knowledge. I have read about this term, but not about secretive knowledge.
The same, it's the
So
same,
is
like
it the same?
confidential, more
Okay,
confidential,
okay.
most confidential. Any guesses? What is the confidential knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is explaining to Arjuna? Any guess? We already saw that in the second chapter.
I think it's Raja Vidya, that chapter, I think.
In the ninth chapter is going to be the more confidential, but before that he reveals the confidential, which is in the chapter 2. Any guess what is the knowledge given in the chapter 2?
That he is the origin of everything, and uh, that that one.
Not exactly.
He's the ultimate.
That you're not the body,
Yes, you're not this body, but you are a.
spirit soul.
So that is the confidential knowledge. It may sound like, oh, every Indian knows that, or like most people know it. However, it's not very easy to realize it. That's why it's called as a confidential knowledge. And that's where everything begins. Spiritual life begins at that point, because even though we know we are so absorbed in the body, the moment we start to understand the difference, that's when the spiritual life actually begins. So that's why it's called as a confidential knowledge. It's like an open secret. Everybody knows it, but still nobody actually realizes it very easily. So that's why it's called as a confidential knowledge. Knowledge about us. So Krishna begins with something which we are interested about. We are mostly interested about ourselves first. So he starts with, I'll tell you a secret about yourself. Oh, I never knew that. So about me, so we are more interested. So he starts with about us, so that it's the knowledge about the soul. And then the more confidential knowledge is revealed in this chapter, which is, for the first time he is going to say that how great God is, how many different kinds of energies he has, that he is the source of everything, as Purva was saying, that he is the source of everything. That part will be explained in this chapter, as Shamila also was saying, like how the chapter 9 he speaks about what do you call Raja Vidya. That is the most confidential knowledge, that we have a relationship with Krishna. So confidential knowledge is who we are, more confidential knowledge who is God, and the most confidential knowledge is that we have a relationship with God. So these are the three levels of knowledge. Am I making sense? So confidential knowledge is that we are spirit souls. More confidential is that who is God, and the most confidential is that we have a relationship. What is that kind of relationship that we have with God, which is a one of love, that he loves us and we can love him and he is open to it. That is the most confidential knowledge. Any thoughts on that or reflections? Panika, you wanted to add something?
No, Prabhu, is my hand raised? No, I don't
No, I saw you unmute, mute.
know. No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. So in this particular chapter, so we'll be seeing the energies of God. So how he is actually having many energies. So before that, we will just touch upon this topic, that how there are various ways to receiving knowledge in this world. If you want to know about something, what do you do in your daily life? Say, for example, you wanted to know what is the best air fryer to buy in the market. So how do you go about making a decision?
Do research. We do
Google.
research.
You research, yes.
Yeah,
And
you look at Google and figure out the
yes,
the ones who have the highest rating.
yes, you go for like others' experience, research along with others' recommendations, and then you apply some kind of intuition also, right? Out of so many options, there's something that you like. Maybe there are 2 3 options, but among them you go with what your intuition says, oh, this is the best. So it's this is how we take decisions on a daily basis or acquire knowledge about unknown things in this world. We observe, we hear from others, and we also apply some kind of knowledge, intuition, and reasoning. The same way in spiritual knowledge also, all three are required. That certain things we can see, certain things we can use logic and reasoning. However, because these subject matters are transcendental, the main authority comes from hearing, because we cannot see the soul with our direct eyes, but we can actually do some logic and reasoning. Yes, what is the difference between a dead body and a living body? How come a person who is having emotions and doing so many things and having a lot of desires, everything suddenly becomes like a dead body without any motion, like completely like a matter? So Prabhupada always says, what is the difference between a dead body and a living body? So there is some logic and reasoning we could apply. However, the real spiritual knowledge comes from Shabda, by hearing about from the spiritual authority. A combination of this is applied in spiritual life. So we take knowledge from Krishna and we try to experience it through applying in life. His Holiness Dhanudhar Maharaj says, faith is trust by experience. That what is reasonable faith? Reasonable faith is trust by experience. Prabhupada says faith is what is Shraddha? Shraddha is unflinching trust. But it is acquired through direct experience, that we can actually engage in the spiritual practice and experience it for ourselves. Chant and see the difference for yourself. I may tell you, oh, if you chant, your mind becomes clean and then you start becoming more spiritual. But if you start chanting yourself, then the experience is more, first-hand experience is more valuable. It gives you more faith. So that's what, then you have trust in the process of chanting, because that is a trust through experience, personal application. So a combination of all these things is important in spiritual life, that we hear from Krishna, we hear from authorities, and then we apply the process and see the results, experience the results directly. So a combination of this works perfect. But the very source of knowledge is always spiritual scriptures. And Krishna speaks about deep hearing. That means like we just don't hear, but we also contemplate what we are hearing about Krishna, what that we are hearing about spirit, soul. So that's why Srila Prabhupada gives so many examples. He gives this example of that how the body is different from the soul. He uses this famous analogy of a car. He says, yes, you have a car and there is a driver for the car. You may fill in fuel, but you also have to feed the driver. Otherwise, the driver will become tired. And he also gives this famous example of a cage and a bird. You may have a golden cage and you may clean it well, but if you don't feed the bird, then the bird becomes like hungry and tired and eventually dies. So similarly, he says how we are separate from the body. The body is like the cage or the car, and the soul is like the driver or the bird. So applying these kind of examples to contemplate what we hear, and then we apply it in personal life through our spiritual practices like chanting, hearing, and all of that. And not just that, but we also offer prayer to Krishna. We also pray that this knowledge becomes a realization. So that is the secret ingredient to actually make the prayer, to make the knowledge into realization. Krishna Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhuji, is this the same as pratyaksha is pratyaksha? I've heard this term in some other class, pratyaksha praman. Is that the same that you're talking about? Right?
Yes,
Okay.
pratyaksha praman, anumana, and shabda praman. All are
Okay.
pramanas.
So that is this is a way of reason. Is it the way of saying that if I see something, like if I see some fire, then I know it's fire, and so please, can you please explain this, Prabhu? This last couple of sentences that you said, 2-3 sentences. Maybe you can just redo them.
Yes, sure.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
In Sanskrit, it is called as pramana. Pramana means what is the proof? What is the authority? Ways to acquire knowledge. In philosophy, they call it epistemology. How do you know what you know? So there are many ways, and one way is in this regular world we can see things and understand. Okay, this is a phone. So by experience, I know that this is a phone by looking at it. But these days, you also create cakes like this. Like you see videos where the replica is exactly looking like a cake, looking like a phone, but it is a cake. So sometimes the direct perception may cheat us. So then we kind of apply logic and reasoning. And we also hear from people, like, say, for example, today, what is the weather? So I take from the authority. I hear from the weather channel, it's going to rain, because they have the knowledge. I hear from them as an authority. As you said, if you want to buy an air fryer, then you do research. You take the knowledge from Google, you take the knowledge from the reviews that other people are writing, checking all the various kinds of air fryers in the market, and they're writing reviews. So you take knowledge from authority. So you hear from authority. So these are the various ways we have. But in spiritual life, in spiritual matters, which are transcendental, which are above which are above immediate sense perception, how do we get the knowledge? Because all the instruments of knowledge that we have is the senses. We gather all our knowledge through the senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch. So these are the only ways for us. And then we have some brain power to assimilate and reason the experience that we take through these senses. But what about subject matter which is above these senses? That is when something called as shabda comes into picture, which means usually scripture, which is usually shastra. And the shastra begins from Krishna. Usually, all the shabda, the origin is Krishna. Krishna says, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna. And also he says, Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyaha. And Vedas come from Krishna, and he is the object of all knowledge in the Vedas. So in that way, then that knowledge is passed down through other sages, and it is then written down by Vyasadeva into Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, and like that. So that becomes the Shabda Praman for us. Today, for us, Shabda Praman is Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and all these books that is written down by Veda Vyasji. But the origin of all this knowledge is actually Supreme Lord Krishna. So for us, the main Pramana is Shabda, but we can have auxiliary pramanas, supporting pramanas through Anuman and Pratyaksha. Does this make sense, Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, this was very helpful.
Okay.
But also it creates another question in my mind is,
Yes.
which is maybe not a topic, you can take it anytime you feel like, but how do you get that trust in that shabda,
Yes.
yes.
That is why we support, like we have this opportunity of experiencing Shabda. Like, how do you develop Shraddha is by applying the knowledge that the Shabda recommends. Say, for example, if I say, through chanting, your mind becomes purified. So that is knowledge. You are hearing from me. But you have to apply it personally in order to actually experience it.
I got it, Prabhu. So because I've been chanting, I've been feeling more peaceful and all that, and that is
That is a
in it.
sign. That is a sign, because these are subject matters which is beyond just matter. So
I think I got it.
some amount of shraddha in something that you cannot just see through your senses is required, but it is not complete blind faith. You can apply it and see. You should be able to see the results that are being promised.
Got it. So we are personally becoming the subject of the experiment.
Yes, we are the
yes.
subject of the experiment. True.
Okay, got it. I think I'm getting it. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So after, when we hear, yes, Parnika?
Sorry, Prabhu. I just wanted to clarify the idea of pramana. Maybe I don't know if I'm understanding it correctly. Is it the idea that basically what we are learning via disciplic succession, or am I misconstruing or like not understanding this correctly?
Yes, the shabda is usually given through parampara.
I was talking about pramana, sorry.
Yeah, pramana, there are many types of pramana, but the most important 3 types of pramana is shabda, anuman, and pratyaksha.
Okay, these are types of pramana. Okay.
Yes, these are types of pramanas, and especially shabda comes through parampara.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yep. Thank you.
So once we hear, as like Krishna Prabhu was saying, how do I put faith in this? How do I verify what I'm hearing is right? So that's why we are encouraged to contemplate, and we are encouraged to apply the knowledge, and also add prayer to the knowledge that to Krishna, that may I realize the knowledge that I'm hearing, and may I have the right attitude in applying this. So in that way, we'll be able to personally experience the process, the results of the process, and that will give us real faith. That faith is trust by experience. So that's what is very important in spiritual life. It's not just casually hearing, but also applying them in our personal life to the degree that we could. And excuse me. So in the second verse, Krishna speaks about that how if anyone understands this knowledge, then everything becomes known to him spiritually. And he specifically speaks about the third verse, very famous. He says, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. He's saying how rare it is to know Krishna in truth. It's not very easy. So that is why Krishna is revealing himself. There is a name called as Adokshaja. Have you ever heard? Adokshaja. So that is the name of Krishna because he is above the knowledge born from senses. Aksha is eyes. Ja is knowledge that is born from eyes, ears, tongue, and all of these senses. He is Adaha. He is above the knowledge of the senses. So that is why Krishna is revealing himself in the coming verses from 4 to 12. So we are going to check those verses starting from 4. So in this section, Krishna is going to reveal that how he has energies. He is not just like